Trying the long here on the ES at 62.25. Had an increase in volume here. Possible that we have some short-term shorts trapped. And we're also at this edge of this pronounced LVN area. So seeing if we might hold value, we've come down into this previous demand area and quite a bit of weakness to the left. Expectation is that we could come all the way up into this high volume area, or this LVN, low volume node, up around this 67.75 area. And it's a very slow, grindy type of trade today. But I'm going to see if we can get some kind of little reversal here to move higher. Full loss for minus 11. Increase in volume coming in back again into this demand area. And we're going to see what happens when we get down below this. See if we might get a reversal at this edge of value here. But didn't really have any kind of imbalance to make me think that we were... what am I trying to say? This isn't really a strong imbalance higher. We did have a increase in volume here, but my expectation was that we had some short-term shorts trapped here. So this small range. But now we're seeing a larger increase in volume, and I'm going to kind of regroup and see what happens at this level now. I just joined the offer again at 61.75 long. We came back down into this demand area I mentioned before. Increased volume and still quite a bit of weakness here. See, this is an area of possible response from the longs and demand, strong demand. So all the way from this overnight trade around 2 a.m. Same trade idea as before. I was a little early, a little bit better structure here now if we can push above this area here. Dropping these shorts in this range from basically from here up into this last seller. So there's a little bit of an LVN here, so it's possible that we may bounce off this area, but I still like the upside more than the short side. So my expectation is that we'll take out the top side of this range before we take out the low side again, and hopefully I can manage risk above this high, this last seller, push these guys out. But this is definitely a low volume situation, fairly balanced, fairly choppy in here, so we'll manage it fairly tight, but this is the structure that I'm trying to trade off of to stay above and move higher. Had some limit selling coming in here, have come down back to this low and one ticked this low, so not real comfortable in this trade at this point, but I need this to push and get going. Otherwise I definitely expect this low to get taken out. Slightly an uncomfortable trade now, but we're going to see if I can get a short-term push above the range, as I mentioned before. But never like being the stuck trader. And now I feel like I am a late long in here with the potential to be stuck and flushed on a push down. I'm also now below my structure that didn't hold this trade, so not much going for the longs until we get back above this area. So I kind of consider this basically just a coin flip or a 50-50 chance that I'm going to get a move up to get my risk off, which is, again, not much of an edge in my opinion. But now we're right back to my area where this last seller was still below where this last seller came in. This last push down was on increased volume, so that tells me that there is some buying in this area anyway. But if there's any significant buyers in here, likely to accumulate lower before moving higher. But so that's not ideal. This grindy trade from the overnight session also, I mean, if we got any kind of large selling coming in here, we have the potential to really a cascade of stops on any large higher time frame players. But I'm playing kind of the short-term demand structure in here. Short-term demand structure, increased volume, low tick, and a small imbalance up here. And I will be looking to manage on a push above this, same as the first trade, on a push above this last seller from this low tick here, push up. So now we are at that area, kind of this make or break for this trade. If we can imbalance higher, we'll have some trap shorts here, and this trade will have a chance. This trade, and how I tend to favor this, is once I get slightly into equity on a trade that is uncomfortable, to de-risk early. But the de-risk point really is not at least minimum until the break of this 63.25 area. And if I de-risk early, the likely of a retrace to my entry is very high. So it's a little uncomfortable to sit in this trade and hold risk, but I have to trust my read, and that we're going to take out the top of this range before the bottom. And otherwise I'm just constantly getting nicked out on trades that I was correct, my context and my read was right, and that happens so frequently. But this is definitely uncomfortable, but it's also very slow. So slight increase in volume, which doesn't necessarily mean big limit selling, but just an increase in two-sided trade. But I am watching this area pretty carefully now, but we have the potential now to push out some shorts. These shorts are potentially trapped, these guys, and then really cascade all the way up if it can get going here. But it's just slow in general, so I don't have expectation of a huge explosive move. But we're also getting it's about 15 minutes before the open. So now we are just 2 ticks above this short-term range, and now I like this trade much more. This is also why it's important to be in, if you're right on the context and read, before the break of these highs, because then you're in a better position to manage the trade. So we'll see what happens here, if we can get some movement. There is 155 contracts at 63.50 below, which is possible. That seems that this may be reloading a significant size buyer, but we'll see what happens. And I want to see how price trades that area, but it's trading and not going away, so that is a good indication. I'm going to take a reduced stop now, 1 tick of risk below this last buyer, but that limit buyer there seems to still be there and still trading. So increased volume now here, this bar here. I'd like to see it hold that volume and move higher. $65.25 is the real short-term target. Mentioned this a couple times before, but the concept and the idea of the trade is that all of these shorts in this push down are now trapped on this trade, and we've also pushed down below the range to take out the liquidity of the stops, the long stops, anybody that was long in here. So both sides of this have now fuel to the upside for a move higher, and that's exactly what I want for my trade. There we go. That's a nice little push right there. See if we can get up to the target. Now I'm going to lock in a couple points minimum. This is kind of a make or break for this target, for this area now. We could see a reaction here, but I'm expecting a further flush up, but that's a significant reaction and pretty nice increase in volume on that as well. So probably lock in 3 points, and I would like to see this area hold this volume, but there's potential for a retrace now, back to at least a couple points lower. So I'd like to see it just go, obviously, but that doesn't typically happen, especially when we're in kind of a slow, grindy balance. This is the highest volume reaction that we've seen so far. So now there's a little LVN at the 65 area that I would expect to hold. Can I survive a pullback there? Because that could also potentially be limit selling coming back in. So I don't want to see much of a pullback here. What I want and what the market wants are completely different things, but I'll be watching this area pretty carefully now. I just took it off at 64.75, so I'm just trying to lock in some profit on some of these trades. I've given back so many lately on very large equity trades, so I'll take the 3 points, especially with this response from the limit sellers here. And now we have pushed down below that, so now I have to kind of just hope that we're going to get back above that to run. And yeah, it could go all the way up higher, but there is this LVN as well at the 65.50 where that's where we saw this reaction and a push into this LVN here, and then this was also the VPOC for the overnight session, so it's all right. I'll take it. There's my 67.75 target hit. 68 we went a tick above, and 64.75 is where I took off my trade, the very low of the pullback. So that's unfortunate, but 3 points is better than nothing. But with commissions, it really only just washes my previous long try, and that's what I see a lot, is that I'm a little bit early, take a loss, and then capture the win later. But see, it makes sense if I take a 3-point loss or a full loss and then get a 2R win, but when I just take a 1-for-1, I'm essentially just staying break even, which is not really a profitable edge. I would like to get a little structure, pull back to this volume here. We can see in the short-term range here we have a LVN in this area. We have definitely some higher volume limit sellers coming in here, but this top is fairly weak, and then the overnight high is, I don't see this as very strong either. We had a little bit of a strong supply push here, but that's what I'll be trading for, is to take out this overnight high. If we can get a pullback and put in a little structure lower, but I'm not going to buy these highs here or anywhere. So that's the read so far. No, I don't really have any short trades or context at this point. And you can see in the profile, the overnight session, we're kind of trading right in balance now. So any shorts would have to get all the way back down, probably below these highs, to attack and take out this. But there's definitely potential for the shorts if we get back down into this area. Also have to keep in mind that I don't want to trade directly back into this volume without some really good structure, because also all of this liquidity has been taken out really all the way up through here. So I'd be leaning on these sellers and the overnight area here to get pushed out, but that's a risky trade in my opinion if we don't get any kind of structure. We just opened up and the overnight high was taken in the opening swing, and I did not get to participate in that, so now I'm just going to wait and see how we handle this high. Seems like we're rejecting here now, but I don't really have anything to do here. If we hold this high, I could see us definitely taking out a lot of this weakness all the way down. So, but nothing to do for me right this minute. I'm taking a long in gold, very large buying, limit buying coming in here, a spike of the liquidity, and we can see on the 5-minute it's a little easier to see into this very large previous demand structure here. So my read is to take out this weakness, kind of all the way up at least into this 28 area. So I wanted to see another test of this volume, but at this point we had a increase in volume here on this bar coming back into this previous push, and so I have a fairly reasonable stop here. So that's really what I was waiting for. And then it's definitely some weakness here, and maybe I get taken out on a push down into further test down into this, but I'd rather give it a shot and take the try to take out some of this. And this is a pretty pronounced LVN as well. So now we just need to push out some of these late shorts, and that's my read here. And we have another short coming in here, so but my expectation is that we'll take out the top side of this short-term range before we come down and spike down lower. But we'll see. Doesn't look like it's going to happen now. But that was my read in the trade, and it looks like it's not going to work out. So this was the test that I was waiting for initially, and now this is going to be a full loss for me. And it's a fairly significant one. 20 tick loss on that one with barely any push above. So this is with the test that I would like to have waited for. So I was the trapped long once again on this trade, on that try. So I'll watch it here and see if we can push up above and get another try, but that's not very good. As far as risk to reward, that was about a 2-to-1, for about a 40 tick upside, and I took a 20 tick stop on that one. So decent try, but I was once again quite early. So we'll see what happens when we come back down. There's this significant volume in this low tick here. It's just hard to manage or find trades that have reasonable stops in these fairly big moves. So this is looking like now we'll move lower to test this volume, and I might take another aggressive try if we can test into this volume and reverse, and the edge of this LVN here is where I'd be looking to give it another try. But at this point we may move lower to see some more long accumulation, but there's obviously very large limit buying going on in this area. So, but it's hard to manage small stops when you're trying to get it right. So my read could be right in the long-term context wise, but is it going to move down another 40-50 ticks, come down and test this? Even who knows, maybe we have large buyers that are going to accumulate even below this low, because this was a very high volume area as well. So doesn't much matter if the read overall is correct if you can't manage the trade in the short term. So an update on gold. So I couldn't have been more wrong on this. This significant limit buying here was really the shorts are definitely in control, and this was the key up here when we failed this top side of the range. This value area here continued to move lower, and I saw this as weakness for a potential retrace if we were going to stay, because the pre-market we were completely in balance, and then found limit buying coming in here, which was, we'll look at the 5-minute on this one, this significant buying, limit buying here. There's a big higher time frame buyer in here, and then they were smashed out. And now I will be looking to try to get a long trade again back up through this space potentially, but we're going to have to put in some significant volume, and stops are going to be hard to manage as well. But yeah, completely wrong. Took a large stop on that trade with no chance to pushing above the short-term range. I mean, I took it really at the very worst point. I was the last buyer giving my order to these shorts, and then this slam down. So sucker, not a good read, or maybe a decent read, but buyers were not yet in control of the market at all. So obviously there's a much higher time frame seller in here, and we saw a very high large seller push this down, and now we just kind of got to reevaluate, but not a very good trade. I'm long 1470 gold. Expectation is that we hold this top side of structure, and already I'm on the wrong side of this trade if we fail the this where we had this high tick here. So this is potentially going to be a quick loss, or we are going to hold this area. This was the trigger into the trade for the long side. I wanted to see this low side tested and taken out. I didn't wait for it, so we'll see. But now I'm in, and I may have been pulled in with the rest of the late longs. But we have all of this space and the potential to go all the way up to the 1910, but all of this is untested. The highest test is here into the 1620. But I'm expecting that some of these shorts are potentially trapped here. I'm going to hold this to pop the top side of this range here. Back up to the entry now, and we're going to see if we can pop the top of this range like I talked about before. Didn't quite take me out, but it easily could have spiked down into this to take out the low side of this range before moving up, and that's what I was waiting for. But I also didn't want to miss the move, so let's see if this can go. I took this off for a 10 tick loss. The trade was no longer valid. We had selling coming in here, so no point in taking a huge stop on this. We definitely are likely now to take out the low side of this range, so that's what I should have waited for initially, but I saw this as a trigger, but a trigger to pull the longs in the wrong fucking side. So frustrating gold trade so far. Nothing to do on the ES. We just keep busting new highs, so there's nothing to the short side. Possible continuation longs on the ES, but we're up into, untested supply here, but it seems this is definitely a trending continuation day, and we keep putting in high volume at every high, every new high, like this huge volume here, big volume here, big volume here, and now big volume here at the new high. So here's an update on the gold trade. So we had this very large limit buying here that stopped this move down accumulation, and my trade concept and idea was that we would come down and move below this short-term range, this value area right here. You can see the bulk, the whole point of control and area has been balancing, and we finally pushed down below this to test this volume here of this move, and we rejected that. And at that point, expectation is we may come back up to the low side of this range and then move lower. If we can't hold this range and break the lows, then my trade idea is back in play to come back up into this to fill in this space from this move down. Unfortunately, the way that it worked, we came back up, tested here, came back down to this our last trapped sellers here, and then we just started moving up, and I did not get an entry in here. I think anywhere in here would have been a decent entry, but the problem with this is that I was watching at this point, and we had this increased volume bar here, and that could have easily been a failure of the short-term range in here and a move down. So once we held from above, then an entry makes sense, but I didn't get in. So now this trade idea, the edge is played out, and I really have no way to trade this. If we come back down, test down below from above the top side of this range around the 1917 area up into the 1919, but that's only a 20 tick target, and there's potential for a much bigger move down. So how do I manage that stop, and how do I manage the trade is now the question. So nothing for me, unfortunately. Took 2 losses. I'm down 30 ticks on the gold trade, and then I wasn't able to take advantage of my read in the context, which was fairly accurate in my opinion. So I'm along the ES 44.92.25 at the level here. I think we potentially have a lot of shorts trapped, and expectation is to come back up into this range here. Now it's a little on the edge of this, and hopefully we can hold this low where these buyers came in. It wasn't a large buy support level, but we had this previous imbalance up, and then high volume. This is the only issue here where it seems we may have had some selling pressure coming back in, which is in line with this previous supply level. So, but I'm expecting this level to fail and to push back up into this range, which is also right at this LVN area. So I may not be right on this trade, but I like the potential because we have the ability to move all the way up. This has all been tested. I mean, at least into this high tick here, into the 45 round number, which is pretty much 8 points from my entry. So that's what I'll be targeting initially. And we need to push out these sellers here. So this is a pretty aggressive trade, I think, but seeing that we had a lot of limit buying here, limit buying here, limit buying here, and I like the trade idea. So I didn't love that this didn't get taken out. I was also thinking the short back into this area at the 44.84, but now we have, so we had a little bit of a push up, this high tick, and limit some selling coming in here. So now we need to hold this area, but there's still maybe sellers here, so we'll see what happens. It's a full loss for me, and I probably could have killed this trade right away when I saw this limit selling coming in here on the high tick into this previous supply. So it was worth a try, but another loss. I'm long again, 91.50, and immediately underwater, but this seemed like this was a potentially kind of a shakeout move. But now we're seeing some selling coming in here again. So this is a little bit of a battle area, and we also could definitely take out this low. But with the limit buying that I saw, I feel like there's definitely strong buying here. But then this also is some significant selling as well. So need to lean on my little bit more on my context read overall, that we are going to move back up into this area. I also feel that if sellers were strong and in control after this imbalance down, that we should have held this and pushed out the longs, and that didn't happen. So that's why I'm giving the long a try again. It doesn't appear that these sellers are here anymore. So it seems like these guys are potentially trapped now. If we can hold that stop, I did take my risk off, but this is pretty weak all the way up here. So I'm again gonna shoot for the 45 round number. But we could get all the way up into this LVN that I have marked here at the 45.02. But I think we have a lot of potentially trapped shorts. This area where these last shorts are trapped is definitely an area of a possible potential pullback. So I locked in 2 points here, but I don't want to get taken out on the pullback either and miss the potential for the move up. But that's kind of, we got to balance that trade. Definitely have a little bit of selling coming in here now, but I still think the shorts are trapped. Another nice push there, holding the volume. I'll be looking for this now to hold, and a run up to the 45 round number. There's some pretty good size on the dome on the offer. See what I can get down here. Just need a little final push there. Nothing crazy on the volume side coming in. Let's see if we can push through, push them out here. It's a little grindy. It's still lunchtime, so not really anything in the way of this trade for high prices, though. Let's see if we can get them here. Pulling back to the volume again. This will be the last chance I'm going to give this to go before I lock in. Probably 6 points on this trade. That was a little pullback to the volume, so it didn't make sense to lock it in there. One final push here. Give it to me. I don't want it down below that last volume again, though. Still no real big increase in volume. Not really showing that there's significant sellers coming in. Just holding there now. Just kind of grinding up. This is pushing deeper than I hoped, but real light volume now. Two minutes before the hour as well, so dome's getting a little more jumpy. Let's get a push here. I wonder how many times I say the word here. I noticed on my videos. It's ridiculous how many times I say it. Okay. I'm trying to cut it from my vocabulary. Push them. I gotta lock something in if we don't get a flush above these tops. Size at the 45, I'll be watching to see how that trades. But it's looking good. Maybe we just slam right through it and go. $99 trading. $99.50 traded. Maybe possibly reloading. Still no real significant volume coming in. So that's what I'm really trying to pay attention to lately. We just flush through that 45. Give it a chance to go up to my target. I think 225 or something I had. Definitely expect to see a reaction at the round number. I'm going to take it off. I took it off. So that was 6 points on that one. Still only puts me up 125 because of the 2 losses. So not a great day for me. It's not the best timing, but there's my 0250 traded and through, so a full 5 points I missed out, and without holding it to the edge of value here. And I also would expect probably a test of the high a day.